Look at the Rialto Bridge today. You will see a city suffocating under its own popularity. Millions of visitors crowd these narrow walkways every year, drawn to the romantic image of a fragile, sinking tourist destination. That volume creates an intense physical threat. Massive modern cruise ships displace enough water to destabilize the city's foundations, a pressure that recently pushed UNESCO to issue urgent heritage and danger warnings. For 1,000 years, this lagoon operated as a highly synchronized economic machine, the medieval headquarters for global finance, manufacturing, and military intelligence. Venice, built on a muddy lagoon with zero natural resources, engineered its dominance over global trade. This systemized infrastructure extracted wealth from the sea, using 3 distinct geographic nodes working in unison: a financial hub, an industrial center, and a political core. Understanding the rise of modern global capitalism requires decoding the architecture of these 3 specific landmarks as functional engines of power. Strip away the modern crowds, and the Rialto reveals its original function. This was Europe's ruthless financial headquarters, where merchants priced silks and spices arriving from the east before distributing them across the continent. This cross-section of Antonio da Ponte's bridge shows the structural logic. A single stone arch rests on 12,000 wooden piles driven deep into the lagoon floor, engineered with a shallow profile to support 2 rows of heavy commercial shops directly on the deck. To fund these voyages, Venetians used the Colleganza contract. It allowed wealthy investors to deploy capital to traveling agents, who took on the physical risk of the sea in exchange for a share of the profits. It was a system that institutionalized risk-sharing centuries before the modern stock market. By 1587, the district also housed the Banco della Piazza di Rialto. It was Europe's first state-operated bank, designed to standardize the chaotic exchange of international currencies flowing between East and West. The Rialto functioned as a bridge to centralize European capital and deploy it into Eastern markets. Crossing the Grand Canal was merely a secondary convenience for the merchants. The capital generated at the Rialto was funneled into the Republic's industrial sector, the arsenal. Heavily guarded and strictly regulated, this was the largest manufacturing site in Europe. Venetian shipwrights used a frame-first hull construction method. By building the wooden skeleton of the ship before attaching the outer planks, they could produce vessels at a speed and cost that their Mediterranean rivals could not match. This top-down layout shows the arsenal's proto-assembly line. A floating hull was towed down a central canal passaging through specialized stations, where workers installed pitch, masts, bronze cannons, and sails in a fixed sequence. This system achieved a volume of military output that allowed Venice to serve as the staging ground for the Fourth Crusade. They diverted the entire Holy War to sack Constantinople, effectively dismantling their primary commercial rival. The arsenal demonstrated that state-controlled, standardized mass production provided the ultimate lever for global military and economic extortion. Managing the financial grit of the Rialto and the industrial power of the arsenal required a central administrative core. That coordination took place within the opulent courtyards of the Doge's palace. The Republic was a deeply entrenched commercial oligarchy, rather than a traditional monarchy. It was run by the Maggior Concilio, or Great Council, a political body comprised of noble families whose interests were inseparable from the needs of the merchant class. The state actively intervened in the market, auctioning warships built in the arsenal to private merchants, and providing state-funded military escorts to protect those trade convoys at sea. By socializing the extreme risks of maritime trade while centralizing its wealth, the Doge's palace operated as the executive boardroom of the world's first multinational corporation. This map shows how Mediterranean trade routes faded as Atlantic shipping lanes opened up. New transatlantic routes bypassed the Mediterranean, draining Venice's supremacy and ending its role as the indispensable middleman. Today, the highly efficient geography that built Venice works lethally against it. The lagoon was engineered to funnel the maximum number of ships and people into a concentrated centralized hub. That funnel now delivers massive cruise ships and millions of day trippers directly into the city's core. The resulting pollution and physical erosion are destabilizing the foundations of the landmarks that built the empire. The city that engineered the operational blueprint for modern globalized trade is now fighting for survival against the very world it helped create.